Hello, I'm Ron Bacon. I'm the mayor of the beautiful city of East Lansing, Michigan, the home of the MSU Spartans. East Lansing is a place that has always been a proving ground for many hard-fought advances in civil rights and human rights, making us the home of many firsts in the overall expansion of human dignity for all people. East Lansing is a community that is committed to being anti-racist, diverse, inclusive, and progressive. We work together every day to manifest our ideals and principles in a way that improve and enrich the lives of all our residents and those who visit our fair city. I am a personal beneficiary of our civil rights legacy, the first black mayor to be seated in East Lansing, standing on the shoulders of many giants. I am also an extension of the legacy of great local and national icons who made our collective progress possible and saved the soul of our nation. Without further delay, I would like to welcome you and thank you for tuning in for the 38th Annual Day of Celebration.
Hi, I'm Lansing Mayor Andy Shore. I'm proud to join with my friend East Lansing Mayor Ron Bacon in welcoming you today and saying thank you for joining us for the 38th Annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Celebration. I'm proud to serve as the mayor of an incredible and diverse city. We're leveraging this diversity to create a more equitable future for all Lansing residents. The city's new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board has been created and is now having members appointed. They'll work with our Chief Diversity Officer to develop policies for Lansing. The legacy of Dr. King lives on today as we all work together to continue the work he started and honor his legacy through progress towards a truly equitable future. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you all enjoy tonight's program.
Welcome to our special presentation of the 2023 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan's Day of Celebration. Tonight's celebration features an exclusive discussion with Dr. Bernice A. King. Musical performances by Pastor Mike Jr., Tasha Cobbs-Leonard, the music of a dream orchestra, and Pastor Larry Trice Jr. Special appearances by United States Senator Gary Peters and United States Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening and welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Elaine Hardy, chairperson of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan. I am here with Mark McDaniel, president and CEO of SENER, your host for tonight's show. The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan is a nonprofit composed of volunteer representatives dedicated to preserving the legacy and teachings of Dr. King by supporting community agencies and empowering youth to achieve educational goals. Over 40 years ago, business and community leaders came together to advocate for federal legislation to create a national King holiday. Today, the work of the Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan is just as meaningful and impactful. It has grown to include community pilgrimages to civil rights landmarks and commemorations, essay and scholarship contests, community conversations, concerts, our annual broadcast, and most notably, our signature community event, the Annual Day of Celebration. I hope you sit back and enjoy the show with your host and my friend, Mark McDaniel.
Thank you, Elaine. Good evening. I'm Mark McDaniel, President and CEO of SENER, based here in Lansing. It has been my privilege to serve once again as the honorary chairperson of the Dr. Martin Luther King Commission of Mid-Michigan. I'd like to welcome our viewing audience to tonight's 2023 celebration broadcast. Taking part in this celebration is always a highlight of my year. I am awed and inspired each year by the speakers, the performances, and the community brought together to honor the legacy of Dr. King. This year was no exception. We were thrilled to be back in person with the celebration after a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic, and we're excited to share the program with you tonight. SENER is honored to stand with the Commission as a partner and supporter. Since our founding 30 years ago, SENER's work creating healthy communities has been inspired by the teachings and legacy of Dr. King. We are committed to our why, an unwavering belief that all people deserve the opportunities provided by living in healthy communities. We believe in equality, diversity, inclusion, and social justice for all people on the Martin Luther King Day and every day. In that spirit, SENER is launching the Ubuntu Fund in 2023, an affordable housing fund specifically dedicated to addressing social inequities in communities we serve by providing financing and support for developers of color. You can learn more about the Ubuntu Fund on our website at sener.com. The theme for the 2023 celebration is, "Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood." These words spoken in 1963 by Dr. King in his I Have a Dream speech affirm that there is no better time for initiatives like the Ubuntu Fund. It is disheartening to know racial injustices still exist today in our country. You can see them, I can see them in healthcare, policing, education, finance, housing, food, and clean water access, and the list keeps going on. Lifting our nation from the ills of racial injustice is no easy feat, and there is no magic wand. Changing the tide of injustice begins with each of us, seeing those affected by its sting as our brother or sister, wholly human and worthy of the same liberties and protection. If each of us takes a small step forward, collectively, we can make a giant step toward the solid rock of brotherhood and equality. I hope tonight's program inspires you to join us in the fight for racial justice and to use your votes and voices to create change. Tonight, we will be sharing clips from a previously recorded interview between Elaine Hardy and Dr. Bernice King. But first, Elaine, thank you to you and the Commission for your hard work and for reminding us that Dr. King's dream can be our reality if we want it to be.
Hello and warmest greetings to everyone joining us for this year's virtual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Celebration. On behalf of Jackson's 3,500 associates across the country, may I say it is our pleasure to support this special event each year, and more than that, to encourage diversity, inclusion, and equity in our workplace all year long. I'd like to extend a special welcome to a group from our office who is watching the broadcast tonight. Members of Jackson's Employee Resource Group VIBE, or Visions in Black Excellence. These associates and their work are just one example of Jackson's commitment to maintaining a culture of respect, where all associates can contribute toward our company's purpose to help Americans achieve financial freedom for life.
Today, I am delighted to tell you about our esteemed keynote, Dr. Bernice A. King. Dr. King is a global thought leader, orator, peace advocate, and Chief Executive Officer of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, which was founded by her mother, Coretta Scott King, in 1968. Through her work, Nonviolence 365, Dr. King educates youth and adults about the nonviolent principles modeled by her parents, including a special program called Students with King, which enables young people to interact virtually with King family members and learn about the more personal side of the King family and legacy. Under Dr. King's leadership, the center has expanded its community engagement with Nonviolence 365 training to partner with communities across the country, including Ferguson, Missouri, Atlanta, Georgia, and St. Paul, Minnesota, just to name a few. I think you'll all agree we are in store for a treat. Please help me give a warm Lansing welcome to Dr. Bernice A. King.
I want to talk a little bit more about your mother's work when the national holiday came into fruition. So on November 20th, 1983, you were a teenage girl at the time. Ronald Reagan signed into law the third Monday in January, naming it the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And as I said, this came after decades of work from your mother. Will you talk about what that day meant for your family, but particularly what it meant for your mother? And then would you tell us how you would like to see the nation celebrate that holiday?
Yeah, actually, I was no longer a teenager. I was 20 when that was signed. And that was a very exciting moment in the life of our family and I believe in the life of our nation, particularly since President Ronald Reagan declared that he was not going to sign that holiday early on. So if you kind of look at the picture of my mother, she's looking and smiling like, She knew how to create the kinds of relationships and get people to do things that they normally would not do. And so this holiday for her was kind of like I won't say it's the culmination, but I would say one of the critical elements in terms of institutionalizing his legacy. I mean, she was really on a mission from the time in which, I would say before he was assassinated. Because what people don't know is that in 1966, she started having meetings about a Martin Luther King library documentation project because her husband had written so much, my father had written so much, and she felt that these teachings and these words are so important to our nation and our world. We got to find a way to ultimately preserve them. And so once he was assassinated, and she prayed for the direction of how to do things, and it merged as the King Center, she also realized she felt it was important that his work be institutionalized. And for her, the holiday was another form of that, because now every year, people would be faced with the name of Martin Luther King Jr., and they will be faced with what he represented. And that's why the commissions were started, the federal holiday commissions. After the holiday passed, my mother recognized, she said, oh, we got to go back because we need a federal holiday commission so that we can create, some uniformity in the way that the holiday is celebrated and make sure that we just don't pass a law and then the law doesn't fulfill its purpose. The purpose of having the holiday is to get people to connect with the spirit and the teachings of Dr. King, because she felt they were so vital to our democracy and vital to us creating the beloved community. And so those commissions emerged and became a lifeline. And the reason that many of them exist today is because of that. So yes, it was very meaningful to her. And because of it, not just here in our nation, over 100 nations celebrate the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., although he's not a citizen of any of those nations. So this moment was like, an icing on the cake moment, because now it gave her opportunity to be much more expansive and have more, affiliates and affiliations in doing the work. And for me, personally, I think it is one of the most important, if not the most important moments in our nation. I think it's so important that he was born at the beginning of the year, because most people use the beginning of years as a marker, you know, a recommitment, a rededication, I'm going to change something. And so it affords us as people and as humanity and as a nation and even as a world, those who are celebrating, to really look at where we are in terms of creating a more just, humane, equitable, peaceful society and world. So it's a measuring point. You know, every year we have to come back to that place. Where are we? Got to be reminded again. It keeps us focused. I really believe, you know, and I say this all the time, my mother raised 4 children while at the same time helping to raise a nation. Because the teachings of my father, and more importantly, it wasn't just about my father that she was doing this. She was doing this to highlight the work of a group of people who were dedicated and sacrificed their very lives for the betterment of this country and for the salvation of this country. So I see this as a critical moment, and I hope as we go forward, I mean, I know we're losing people over and over again, but I used to say to some folks, you know how we as a country salute and celebrate those that serve in the armed services? We need to salute and celebrate those who serve without weapons to save this nation from literal bloodshed, bloodbaths. And to give this nation a soul and a heart. Because had it not been for that movement in the 50s and 60s, we would be a totally heartless and soulless nation.
This has been over 80 years in the making. Little by little, piece by piece, taking the time to get it right. At the end of the day, it's about working together to make a difference. When it comes to that, we've got it down to the letter. LAFCU, your credit union for life.
Hello, I'm U.S. Senator Gary Peters, and welcome to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan's Annual Day of Celebration. I would also like to thank the Commission for their leadership in bringing us all together today. And I'm absolutely honored to help kick off this event, which is Michigan's largest and longest running celebration of the late Dr. King. We honor Dr. King not only for the lessons that he taught us and the important change he inspired, but for the deep-seated love he held for our nation and its future. It is that love that has inspired generations of Americans to stay in the fight and to work to leave a better world for the generations after. Dr. King once said, "Take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step." His dream was a nation and a world that never stopped striving to be better, despite inevitable adversities and challenges that we may face. We can never lose sight of that dream that Dr. King instilled in all of us, because while his words live on, they remain absolutely vital today. Right now, truth, democracy, equal treatment under the law, 3 pillars of Dr. King's legacy are all under attack in communities across our country, which is why we honor his life and his legacy this MLK Day. We must do so by recommitting ourselves to service and standing against injustice for those without a voice. And as we work to fight against injustices like misinformation and voter suppression and racial disparities, whether in healthcare, education, or the justice system, we must do so by taking that first step in faith. And we need to do that together.
Jackson provides retirement products for industry professionals and their clients. Jackson supports nonprofits that promote strong families and create economic opportunities in communities where its employees live and work.
The Bible says that the children of Israel raised their voice and God sent a deliverer. The same God that was with them, I prophesy He's with us today. He'll be the reason why we scream. Someone asked
a question.
Why do we scream?
Why do we scream?
When we lift our voice.
When we lift our voice for justice.
In this fight.
In the fight for equality.
Someone may be wondering.
Someone may be wondering.
When will it end?
When will it end?
There's another mother crying.
Another mother's crying.
And we're protesting again.
We're protesting again.
Somebody lift your voice and say,
we scream because we're tired.
Thank you for George Floyd, but guess what?
One verdict won't keep us quiet.
Somebody ought to say their name. They're the reason.
You're the reason why we scream.
Can you lift your hands and say we scream?
We scream because we're tired.
We won't forget the past.
One verdict won't keep us quiet.
Somebody ought to say their name. They're the reason.
You're the reason why we scream.
Come on, one more time. We scream.
We scream because we're tired.
God, we're looking forward to the future.
One verdict won't keep us quiet.
We're believing God for legislation. Until then, we'll keep on.
You're the reason why we scream.
In the midst of social injustice.
You're the reason why we scream.
When we're killing each other.
You're the reason why we scream.
Derek Michael Chauvin, defendant. Verdict, count 1. Court file number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty.
Go tell Pharaoh.
Let my people go.
Yeah, yeah. Go tell Pharaoh.
Let my people go.
Yeah. Racial injustice, equality.
Yeah.
We coming out of this poverty.
Yeah.
Get your knee off my neck. I can't breathe. No justice.
No peace.
You know we come from the dirt.
Yeah.
Told me the last to be first.
Yeah.
Still trying to make me a slave.
Yeah.
But I'm a child of the king. Get your knee off my neck. I can't breathe. No justice.
No peace.
You know we come from the dirt. Yeah. Told me the last to be first. Yeah. Still trying to make me a slave. Yeah. But I'm a child of the king. If you bless, gon' say. If he came through and he always made a way. If he came and he turned your life around. Yeah. If you know that you gotta get it now. Yeah. I got it, I got it. You got it, you got it. We got it, we got it. It's already mine. I got it, I got it. You got it, you got it. We got it, we got it. It's already mine. First.
Jehovah Jireh, you be my provider.
Yeah.
And you're my rider.
You've been with me.
You've been with me through the fire.
Rock this way.
No worries that you got me. Giving up, not likely. No, the devil can't stop me. 'Cause I'm walking in my victory.
Walking in victory.
Stay with it long as you're with me.
Everybody jump now. You made a way. Out of no way. 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 You keep on blessing. Every day. Fight. Yeah. Let's go. Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like
Yeah.
Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord. Yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory. Yeah, yeah. can go to the throne. He's right beside me. Hold my hand in the valley. Lost the night, found me.
Don't know where I will be, don't know who I will be, yeah.
Came through when I need him, he's a ride on, yeah. Hold my hand as you know he be fighting, yeah.
I never had no one to stick beside me, yeah. But when it's cold, I know he got that fire.
Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
Can't nobody do me like the Lord, yeah.
Ain't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I give you glory, yeah. I give you glory, I give you glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
You get the glory, you get the glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory.
You get the glory, get your swag on.
I give you glory,
It's already mine.
it's already mine.
You know the devil be mad, yeah. You know I stay in my bag, yeah. Everybody around me blessed. It's already mine.
It's already mine.
You know the devil be mad, yeah. You know I stay in my bag, yeah. Everybody around me blessed. I got it, I got it. You got it, you got it. We got it, we got it. It's already mine.
Already mine.
I got it, I got it. You got it, you got it. We got it, we got it. It's already mine.
Already mine.
Sing!
No words that you got me, giving up not likely.
No, the devil can't stop me.
Because I'm walking in my victory.
I need you to jump with me.
Longest story.
I need you to jump with me. Everybody jump. Say, you made a way.
You made a way,
Out of no way.
out of the way.
You made a way.
You made a way,
Out of no way.
out of the way.
You made a way.
You made a way,
Out of no way.
out of the way.
You made a way.
You made a way,
Out of no way.
out of the way.
Keep on blessing.
Keep on blessing me every day.
Fight on my battles.
Fight on my battles, yes, every day. That's why we give you all the glory.
Hands up.
Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
I still believe that you're good, God. Yeah.
Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus.
So I give you glory, yeah, yeah. I give you glory, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I give you glory, yeah.
You get the glory, you get the glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
You get the glory, you get the glory.
I give you glory, I give you glory, yeah.
It's already mine.
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 already mine.
I give you glory, yeah, yeah.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. challenged us all to break down segregation in his fight for equality and fairness. Case Credit Union is consistently taking his vision for justice to the next level by redefining banking with a thoughtful approach to our members' needs and understanding their goals. Jeffrey Benson and the Case team work to serve all of our members and exude Dr. King's legacy in our diversity, equity, and inclusion. Belong to something special. Become a member. CaseCU.org.
Good evening, friends, distinguished guests, and those tuned into this program. I'm Congresswoman Slotkin. I represent Michigan's 7th District in the House of Representatives. It's a tremendous honor to join you as we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As so many of you know, tonight's broadcast wouldn't be possible without the tireless work of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan. For nearly 40 years, they've continued to carry out the unfinished work that Dr. King began. In particular, I want to thank my friend, Ms. Elaine Hardy, for her leadership and tireless efforts as the Commission's chairperson. For today's celebration, I want to zero in on this year's theme, which is a quote from Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. Quote, "Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood." If you're a history buff like me, you've read or listened to this speech in full many times. But I find that every time I go back to it, something new stands out. In this particular quote, the word now is italicized, meaning there's a sense of urgency of doing things right now. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when it's more convenient, now. And we can learn from Dr. King on that front, which I had the opportunity to just do last month when I got a chance to visit the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee, which is housed right in the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, where Dr. King was assassinated. Let me recommend this museum, first of all, to everyone. It was truly amazing. One of the things that stood out while I was there, which I think the history books may miss, was that the progress made during the civil rights movement didn't happen by accident. It was due to an intricate and strategic plan to make things happen now. That included legal, financial, and press planning. These weren't just leaders who got fed up and refused to accept the status quo. They had an agenda and they had a plan. And that's a lesson we can all learn from, especially for those of us trusted to represent constituents in elected office. There is no effective urgency without thoughtful planning and hard work to get things done and get them done now. And that's a good lesson for us today because we live in a time when some confuse what real activism is. Making lots of noise on social media is part of the equation, but it's a start, not an ending. We need passionate activism combined with a plan. That was a clear message that I took away from visiting the museum. Another lesson from my visit was the engagement from President Johnson to support that activist movement. Looking back, it seems pretty amazing that a Southern Democrat raised in Texas would be the man who shepherded both the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act into law. Johnson, who was a deeply complicated man to begin with, lost all support from Southern Democrats in his own party because of his push for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and then backing the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But it was the right thing to do, and he did it. At the National Civil Rights Museum, you can listen to taped conversations between Dr. King and President Johnson as they discuss the way forward on civil rights legislation. You get to literally hear the interaction between activism and leadership, and it was powerful. Frankly, it's an unbeatable combination that got these landmark laws put into place. Urgency equals activism plus a plan. That is something I take from MLK's words and certainly his deeds. So, on this important day, I thank you for having me be a part of the celebration. It gives everyone, including me, the opportunity to focus and recommit ourselves to that work and doing the right thing right now.
So is that your message to the young people that you mentor? I mean, I read often that you spend time mentoring and working with young people. What do you say to them? I mean, we have a lot of things going on in our country, as you enumerated. What do you say to young people who are grappling with all of the things that are going on, the racism, the poverty, the uncertainty about our future as a country, our democracy? What do you say to them now, specifically to those young people that you love to mentor?
Well, I mean, number one, I find that a lot of young people now, not always, in recent times, a lot of young people want to be a part of something significant. They want to make a difference in the world. And I always stress the importance of really studying, and I'm biased, I mean, granted, but studying the movement that my father led. Because it was effective. And so, reading certain things, connecting with people who were part. We've been fortunate in the last few years. Now we are really losing them with Dr. Lowry, Dr. C.T. Vivian, and Congressman Lewis now gone in 1 year, but we're still fortunate to have some few left. Diane Nash, as you mentioned, and James Lawson, as you mentioned, and Ambassador Andrew Young, Jesse Jackson, and so many others. They're still here. Take advantage of that because there's nothing, this is true. There's nothing new under the sun. Yes, we got new devices, we got new ways of connecting, but we still connect. And so there's some things that are fundamental to just being a part of a human race that we can get from people, that we must get from people because we're building upon what they did and others will build upon what they do. And so they want to be well prepared. And then the final thing I say to them is what my mother said. Struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation. Now, the first time I heard those words, honestly, was after my mother died. And I'm glad because I was scratching my head over the years as I spoke around this country, in this nation. as to why we can't seem to make much greater progress. From when, my mom and then to South Africa, what's the holdup?
Right, right.
And when I heard that, it relieved me. And it helped me to recognize what I had been saying all along to people around this country, and particularly on college campuses. Look, my daddy talked about the moral arc of the universe being long and bends towards justice. President Obama came along and said we have to bend it towards justice, meaning we have to participate in the bending it towards justice. The point is we can't lay back, be apathetic, and think somebody else is going to take care of our issues and our problem and our world. We all are called to this freedom struggle. Your generation has a calling in this freedom struggle. You all have to wrestle with what that calling is. What are the specific things we are to target and focus on? Because you cannot deal with everything. It will exhaust you, it will tire you, and you will burn out. And so you have to decide, what are those 2 to 3 things that I have to do in this life? And then study, learn, make those critical connections, and then connect with entities and organizations that are doing the work. My cry to everybody listening to me, from the young, middle-aged in particular, let's not keep creating another effort or another organization. There are organizations that are doing the work. We need to align and strengthen them with our talents and our gifts. As he said, organize our strength into compelling power. The more we have entity-wise, the weaker we are. Because we're all over the place. And if we're gonna have these organizations, let's not do it in a silo. Let's understand we are part of the Nehemiah calling. Nehemiah went to build the wall in the Bible when the walls and the gates and the whole city of Jerusalem had been destroyed. When he went in, he employed everyone to become a part of rebuilding that wall in their area of influence, I would call it, or in their area of familiarity. So they did it at their particular places, that they live, resided, etc. So they built in that space, but they built connected to one another. And there was one part in that scripture that I say to you, and that is where he said, look, the work, what we are dealing with, the work is expansive. This is in Nehemiah 4:19. And we are widely separated on the wall. We got a lot of work. I could run the list down of everything we are faced with in this country, across the board, whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about economics, whether you're talking about health, whether you're talking about criminal justice, whether you're talking about the environment, there's immigration. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. Race and, poverty and militarism. There's so much work to do, and it's extensive. And we're widely separated. We're in our own little pockets doing our work. But there was one key phrase he said, when you hear the sound of the trump. I didn't mean to say Trump, it said trumpet. I think I slipped on that. When you hear the sound of the trumpet, but maybe it did mean that, then gather here, meaning come together, meaning coordinate, collaborate, connect, and unite, and our God will fight for us. The power of my father's movement was whenever they came together under a united front, there was no force that could resist them.
You know my name. Oh, you know my name. You know my name. And oh, how you walk with me.
You know my name. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know my name. Thank you for loving me. You know my name. I love this part. Let's raise it up. Oh, how you walk. Oh, how you walk with me. You've been right there. And oh, how you talk with me. Oh, how you tell me. Oh, how you tell me that I am your own. That I am your own. Ooh. Oh, how you walk with me. Oh, how you walk with me. You've been a faithful friend, yeah. And oh, how you talk with me. Oh, how you tell me. Oh, how you tell me that I am your own. Yeah. So no fire can burn me, no battle can turn me, no mountain can stop me. Why? Because you hold my hand. And I'm walking in your victory, 'cause your power is within me. No giant can defeat me. Why? Because you hold my hand. Say no fire can burn me, no battle can turn me, no mountain can stop me. Why? Because you hold my hand. Walking in your victory, 'cause your power is within me. No giant can defeat me. You know my name.
Lake Trust Credit Union is honored to support the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commission of Mid-Michigan for the third consecutive year. Embracing the passion behind Dr. King's mission, Lake Trust empowers programs that focus on enhancing health, well-being, education, and financial equity. By channeling the power in all of us, we can drive positive change in our communities and advance Dr. King's legacy together.
Dr. King overcame impossible odds with faith and a dream. It is with that same faith that we go into 2021, turning impossibilities into realities. Don't lose your passion. Listen to me. Never trust your feelings while you're on this earth. You live by what you hear is what they told me first. Still, sometimes something comes over me, telling there's more to me, pushing another me for all it's worth. When it does feel like I can run a marathon, shoot straight up to the sun. Come back and do what's never been done. Change the world with one word of love. Feel like I'm living in paradise, and me and God sitting side by side. I'm gonna live and never die. Just how I feel. I can't fight this feeling, y'all. Oh no, I can't. Jeremiah got the feeling all in his bones, and Samson got to shaking when something was wrong. It's the power that takes over me, reaches the soul of me, touches the more of me, all being his own. When it does, we're looking around a marathon, shoot straight up to the sun. Come back and do what's never been done. Change the world with one word of love. Feel like I'm living in paradise, and me and God sitting side by side. I'm gonna live and never die. Just how I feel. Just how I feel, yeah. How I feel. How I feel.
Yeah, it's like I'm feeling this passion, this fire, this drive. One word from God has got me all like, hey. I could take the world in one night, those storms
At Consumers Energy, we believe change is imagining. Change is big, small, clean. Him, them, us, you. Together, we can bring clean energy to Michigan and protect the environment for generations to come. Learn about your clean energy choices and how you can become a force of change. consumersenergy.com/change.
You mentioned President Barack Obama earlier in your comments when you said that we had to bend that arc toward justice, and so you have seen the inauguration of the first Black male president, and soon the inauguration of the first Black woman vice president. Victories that your parents fought hard for. What does this mean for America? Is this a new promise of hope? What do you think this means for America?
I think it's a reminder, a re-emphasis that we still have some work to do. Because the dream was not about a position or a person. It was about people. It was about dignity. It was about respect. It was about value, that inherent value and worth of every human being, and really looking at whether or not in this world that we live in, people are treated as such. And certainly we know that is not the case. Black Lives Matter is here because in every area of American life, Black people are still last, period. We're last in every category. Just look at the statistics. That's not because we don't have inherent value or worth. It's not because, there's something fundamentally wrong with us. We have systems that have been created to intentionally create these disparities. And so as this has happened now, it's a reminder that we still have to deal with Black lives. So it's in our face. So as she emerges, as she appears on different platforms, let's not celebrate just her. Like she said in her own words, I'm the first, but I won't be the last. That's a loud message. In other words, America, there are more of us who look like me, and we can no longer be the last.
This is my last question. Every time I go to Washington, D.C., I go to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and I stand on the step and in the footsteps where your father stood. I also make every kid that I take to Washington, D.C. do the same thing. But if I could transport you back there, if I could send you to the Lincoln Memorial today, stand in the exact space that your father stood, what would be your dream for America? And what would be your message to us as Americans?
Well, my dream and hope is that we will begin to focus our attention on creating this beloved community. We've talked about it. We have a desire to see it come to pass. But now we have to realize that we each have that role, as I talked about earlier, and responsibility into creating it. There's something that my father said that I have been on a mission to disprove. Most of what my father said, I embrace, applaud, believe in, quote. But there's this one saying he mentions that I want us collectively to disprove, and that is, he said, one of the tragedies still, and he said that over 50 years ago, the still, and I'm bringing it into 2021 and saying one of the tragedies still of human history is that the children of darkness are often more determined and zealous than the children of light. That has to change. You are the light of this world. And I'm encouraging each one of us to light up these dark places and these dark circumstances that we continue to face of injustice and inequity in this nation. And that you show up as an answer to these problems. That you show up and you continue to show up, and that you not let up. You know, that you let not only your voices be heard, but that you begin to align with the people who are also the children of light. And let's do the work of creating a beloved community by combating these evils that continue to haunt us in this world: racism, poverty, and militarism. Let's stand up and fight for health care. I was having a conversation earlier with Elaine, and I said that it's actually a crime, in my opinion, that in this nation we have politicized health care. We are promised life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And tied to life is our health. If we don't have our health, we really don't have life. And so we should not be politicizing health. Health should be something that is provided to every human being that is born and that is in this nation. Every human being ought to have a livable wage. People should not be struggling to have a roof over their head, to feed themselves, to be able to ensure that their children have an adequate education. And so these things are only going to change if we recognize that we have a role and responsibility to be zealous and determined, just as the children of light. That means we have to organize and strategize and be intentional and plan and sacrifice if we must. Because that's what it usually takes, an extra sacrifice. Those that lived during my father's time and worked with him in that movement, they had to sacrifice. They had to give up some things in order to gain some things for them and the generations that follow them. That's the challenge to each one of us, that we think about what it is we are willing to commit ourselves to for the next generation, and then be willing to sacrifice for it.
Elaine, what an amazing conversation tonight with Dr. Bernice King. What an amazing night this has been, continuing the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s work and his tenacious wife, Coretta Scott King, whose work has transcended so many barriers and continues to challenge us to fight for justice, equality, inclusion, and equity.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you to our sponsors and to our viewing audience. If you would like to learn more about the Dr. Martin Luther King Commission and its work, please visit us at mlkmidmichigan.com to learn more about upcoming events. Thank you for viewing. Good night, and God bless you.